Okay, I got quite a few things to get through here at the top, so bear with me. I think today the department released the fiscal year 2020 annual report on sexual assault in the military. Of note, the pandemic forced the department to postpone our biennial survey, so we've delayed it now to fiscal year 21, so our survey in fiscal year 21. So this year's report it does not contain sexual assault prevalence survey results. The report, which is required by Congress annually, provides fiscal year 2020 reporting data, which is separate from estimated prevalence, case dispositions, and updates to initiatives the department executed throughout the year, including during the pandemic. I also want to note that this report is separate and distinct from the ongoing work that is being done by the Independent Review Commission. Just in terms of top-line data, of the total 7,816 reports received by the department in fiscal year 20, 6,290 of them involved allegations from service members for incidents that occurred during military service. This is up by 1% from the 6,236 service member reports that we received in fiscal year 19. Reports from civilian victims and service members reporting a pre-service incident decreased this year. A press release will be sent shortly here by the department announcing the release. For your awareness, the report and a fact sheet with all these top-line results can be found on our website at www.sapr.mil. So you can go there for more information about the report. This morning, the Undersecretary of Defense for Policy, Dr. Colin Kahl, met with Israeli Minister of Defense, Director of Policy and Political Military Affairs, Zohar Palti, here at the Pentagon. This meeting follows Secretary Austin's call with Israeli Minister of Defense Gantz yesterday, and the President's call yesterday with Prime Minister Netanyahu, as well as other calls to Israeli leaders in recent days across our government. The two leaders discussed the U.S.-Israel defense partnership and opportunities for strengthening our bilateral cooperation. They also discussed, of course, the recent rocket attacks emanating from Gaza. Undersecretary Kahl unequivocally condemned these terrorist attacks directed at Israeli civilians and underscored U.S. support for Israel's right to defend itself and its citizens. They agreed to maintain a close dialogue and to work together to strengthen regional security. Dr. Kahl underscored the department's enduring support for Israel's security and qualitative military edge, and conveyed the administration's support for a restoration of calm and the protection of civilians. A schedule note, later on this afternoon, about 2 hours from now, the Secretary will be participating virtually in Vice President Harris's Task Force on Worker Organizing and Empowerment meeting in the Vice President's ceremonial office. The task force will be dedicated to mobilizing the federal government's policies, programs, and practices to empower workers, a priority of this administration, and the department is proud to help and join this effort. Yesterday, I think you all saw, the President signed an executive order to improve the nation's cybersecurity and protect federal government networks. The department, along with other agencies, participated in the drafting of this executive order. The department will continue to work with our federal and industry partners to safeguard DoD information on the networks and information systems of our defense industrial base partners. We are already incorporating many of the cybersecurity initiatives in the EO to ensure that the department can achieve its missions in what is obviously a contested cyberspace environment. On to Europe and Defender 21. The exercise continues. The Virginia-class submarine USS New Mexico arrived in Tromsø, Norway, earlier this week. In the next few days, there'll be exercises ongoing in Albania, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Croatia, Germany, and North Macedonia. U.S. Air Forces in Europe, Africa began Exercise Austral Night 2021, which is a joint multinational exercise involving airmen, soldiers, and sailors from the U.S., working with service members from Albania, Croatia, Greece, Italy, and Slovenia. Austral Night as an integrated air and missile defense exercise, and it focuses on defending key terrain, and scheduled training will involve a combination of flight operations and computer-assisted scenarios. As I said before, we're going to continue to share with you as often as we can how this exercise is ongoing because we believe that transparency is important, and it's also critical to helping avoid any misunderstandings or miscalculations. Speaking of exercises, on Tuesday of this week, the U.S. Navy and Marine Corps units based in Japan began exercise Jeanne d'Arc, a multinational training exercise off the coast of Japan. From the 11th of May, it'll go to the 16th, alongside French, Japanese, and Australian military forces. Sailors and Marines aboard the amphibious transport dock ship USS New Orleans will operate alongside naval and land-based units from the Royal Australian Navy, French Armed Forces, and Japan Self-Defense Forces. The exercise will include amphibious landings, air assaults, formation maneuvers, air defense exercises, and communication drills that enhance interoperability in pursuit of common regional security goals. And finally, on Monday the 17th, you may notice an increase in helicopter activity in and around the Pentagon and the National Capital Region. This activity is due to a regularly scheduled exercise. And with that, we'll go to questions. Bob?
Thanks, John. By the way, those of us on Zoom did not hear the beginning of your statement because you were muted initially. Just for your awareness. Okay. So I don't know if I missed something that I would have otherwise asked you about, but I do have a couple of quick questions.
You didn't miss anything important, Bob.
Okay. Does the Secretary, or do you have any comment on the arrest of the active duty Marine who is alleged to have participated in the January 6th insurrection? And secondly, do the new CDC guidelines about fully vaccinated people being allowed to, or being safely able to not wear masks indoors, does this affect DOD policy on mask wearing in the Pentagon or on military bases? Thanks.
So on the first question, the Secretary is aware of the arrest of a Marine Corps officer in connection with the events of January 6th, but obviously this is a law enforcement matter, and we're not going to comment any further on that. And for any other details regarding the individual, I'd point you to the Marine Corps, who I think have already who already commented on this. On the new CDC guidelines, you saw it same time that we did, Bob. Washington headquarters services will now take a look at these revised guidelines and determine what the best way forward is for the Pentagon reservation as well as other military headquarters here in town, and we'll obviously be following whatever guidance they come up with. But there's no changes here today, right, that we can speak to.
Thank you.
Laura.
Thanks, John. I wanted to ask you about Afghanistan. So the Taliban recently captured a district just outside of Kabul. Is this a concern for the U.S. withdrawal? And will there be any change in plan or pace of the withdrawal if the Taliban does, in fact, take Kabul?
I really don't want to get into hypotheticals, Laura. The pace of the retrograde continues on schedule. We are, as always, mindful that it's a very dynamic environment, and that's why the Secretary has made sure that General Miller has options at his disposal should he need to use them to protect the retrograde and the people participating in it. But I don't want to hypothesize about specific operations on the ground and what they may or may not mean for us. Right now, as you and I are talking, the retrograde is continuing apace.
Fighting just outside of Kabul is not hypothetical. That's happening right now. So is that...
Yeah, but you asked me about hypothetical effects it might have on the retrograde, and I'm not going to speculate about the future. Obviously, General Miller is watching events closely in Afghanistan, where he still has capability to protect his force and is still providing a measure of support to Afghan forces. But again, I won't speak to the specifics of that. Obviously, he's watching this very, very closely to be able to gauge whether there is going to be any effect on the retrograde. And as you and I are speaking now, I can tell you that the retrograde is continuing apace. Back here, David Martin.
Sorry, here I am. back on the active duty Marine, is there any investigation or inquiry being done by the Department of Defense as to who among his fellow officers might have known about this and tacitly condoned it by remaining silent? And does do the Department of Justice charges supersede anything that might happen under UCMJ?
On the first question, I'm not aware of any investigation that the department is undertaking with respect to this individual. And on the second question, this is right now a federal law enforcement matter that process needs to continue, and I think it's at this stage it's too early to speculate about any UCMJ actions that may or may not be taken. Right now, this is squarely in the Justice Department lane, and we're going to respect that. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I am wondering about Kandahar. Afghan officials have confirmed that the U.S. forces have left Kandahar. I'm wondering if the DoD can give anything on record regarding that matter.
I cannot. I would refer you back to Central Command's update of Tuesday. That's where we're at in terms of publicly acknowledging the retrograde pace. I mean, I've seen those press reports, but I'm not in a position to confirm them.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hey, John, thanks. Good afternoon. Two questions. One on the exercises in Europe. I think last week or so when you discussed the amphibious action in Albania, sort of the opening of it. Will we ever get a chance to see sort of results or summaries of how it went, lessons learned, anything like that? It's a vague question, but I'm wondering, will we see some after-action kind of feedback on the success? I know you talk about national security. I'm not trying to make fun of that, but nevertheless, you guys touted this as the biggest exercise, since World War II. And can we expect anything?
I would point you to European Command for any specific after-action reporting on this. I'm not familiar with the fidelity with which they communicate sort of the end. But every exercise, when it's over, we hot wash it to see what we learned and what we could do differently or better, or what we thought went really well. How much of that's going to be publicly accessible? That's really up to you, Com.
And to follow up on
but
that,
I will say, I mean, as I promised, I'm going to continue to update you on this exercise. It's a big exercise, and we believe that transparency and accountability are healthy attributes when we got this many forces doing it.
It's very popular among the radio stations because it appeals to a lot of veterans of World War II and others who listen to these talk stations. So that's why I'm inquiring, in case you were wondering. My second question is a follow-up to what was asked earlier about the Marine. Several times from the podium and elsewhere, you've been asked and you've responded to questions about the depth of the potential problem of extremism in the ranks, et cetera. And you have said, and I'm paraphrasing you liberally, that you have said that we're trying to get a hold of the problem, trying to grasp the extent of the problem.
Yeah.
Well, here's a clear case from the Justice Department of someone accused of it. So I think it was Laura, and I apologize, who asked the question about, will the Marines or anyone do a follow-up? Here's a lead. This is what we would call a lead of someone whose extremism the Justice Department has pointed out to. And I think it was David who asked about other investigations about officers or his colleagues. I'm sort of puzzled. I know you can't speak for the Marine Corps at this moment, but does it seem to you, as a veteran observer of how things work in the military, that this is a lead that should be followed as the Pentagon grapples to determine the extent of extremism in its ranks?
I think we need to respect process right now, and this is a Justice Department action. This individual has been charged, and under our system, you're innocent until proven guilty, and we need to let the legal process play out. And I think that's the most important thing. And frankly, that alone, that willingness by all of us here to let this process play the way it should, I think speaks volumes about the values we actually do espouse and the kind of institution that we are. And so I think it's really important that none of us get ahead of that and do anything that would that could prejudice that process in any way. Let me go back to the phones. Therese.
No question today for you.
Oh, okay.
I know it's a first.
It's a welcome first. Christina Wong.
Hey, thanks so much. Are the fuel shortages stemming from the Colonial Pipeline attack, are they having an effect on military training or operations or bases? And if so, how big of an effect has it had?
Right now, I can tell you there has not been an impact to our operations or ability to conduct missions, at least in those areas affected by the pipeline. This is something we're obviously always going to be watching. DLA, Defense Logistics Agency, is certainly mindful of this and tracking this. But as of today, there's no operational impact. Sylvie.
Thank you.
I have a question about Israel. Did the Undersecretary for Policy, during his talks with his counterpart, did he raise the question of the incident of the bombing of a building, a Palestinian building, where several dozens of civilians were killed, including children?
I'm not going to go into more detail of that conversation than what I gave you in the readout, which I thought was pretty extensive in terms of what they talked about. I won't go into further detail than that.
And do you have talks with your Israeli counterparts about the necessity of preserving?
I think you've heard the president say it, and we've said it as well. We certainly don't want to see innocent civilians hurt in this, and we would obviously welcome any moves to de-escalate the tensions. But the scale and the scope of the attacks on Israel are extensive, and as we've said before, they have a right to defend themselves and their citizens, and we have an ironclad commitment to our bilateral relationship with Israel and to helping them in their self-defense. Yes, in the back.
I wanted to ask you about, has there been any update on the U.S. military assistance to India on COVID-19 this week?
Actually, I do.
Thank you.
But I'm going to have to find it. So you're just going to have to give me a second. Here we go. I got too many tabs in this book. The Defense Logistics Agency is preparing 159 oxygen concentrators at Travis Air Force Base. They're scheduled to ship via commercial air for a Monday, that's the 17th of May, delivery to India. We obviously remain in close communication and touch with our partners in the Indian government and stand by to continue to assist in any way that would be helpful.
Has the Indian government directly asked the building about any further assistance from the U.S.?
I'm not aware of any specific request for additional assistance, but as I said, we're in constant communication with our partners in India, and the Secretary has also made it very clear that he wants us to lean in and do as much as we can, obviously in full coordination and consultation with leaders in India.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let me go back to the phones. Wafa.
Hi. As you know, we missed the statement you made at the beginning of the briefing, so I'm not sure if you mentioned that the meeting that happened today at the Pentagon between Policy Chief Colin Cole and his counterpart, Israeli counterpart, that meeting was scheduled before, or it was directly related to the escalation in Israel. Also, can you please confirm the reports about the withdrawal of 120 American civilians and military personnel from Israel?
So on your first question, I did put that in the topper, and I apologize for the technical difficulties. We'll get you a transcript of what I said, the readout of that conversation. between Dr. Call and his Israeli counterpart. We'll get that to you right away. I actually don't know the scheduling of that. I don't know how long that had been on the schedule. So we're going to take that question. That's a fair one, and we'll get back to you on that. Yes, approximately 120 Defense Department personnel did arrive in Germany today from Israel. They flew aboard a C-17 military aircraft that is based in Ramstein. We made this decision to remove these individuals in coordination with our Israeli counterparts, of course. These people from throughout the department were in Israel for a routine planning event as part of the normal exercise cycle in support of longstanding bilateral agreements with Israel. The event itself, the planning conference, I think you all know when we conduct a major exercise, there are a series of planning conferences that lead up to it because there's a lot of things and details to work their way through. This particular planning conference was already scheduled to wrap up this week, but we did accelerate the departure of these individuals, again, in full coordination with our Israeli counterparts. So they're in Germany now, and we will be working with them to make plans for them to return to their home bases and stations as appropriate.
Thank you.
Yep. Janie.
Thank you, John. I'd like to ask you about on the joint all-domain command and control. The last Monday, nominee for Undersecretary of Defense for the intelligence and security, and Ronald Moultrie said that at the congressional hearing he said about joint all-domain command and control. Do you have anything about this for more details? Can you explain?
I don't. You're going to have to let me get back to you on that, Janie.
It's a JADC.
I know what it is, but I don't. I wasn't tracking the comments in the confirmation hearing, so before I just spout off here, let me go look at the testimony and the transcript, and then we'll see if we can try to put some context around it for you. I'm aware of what it is, Joint Command and Control, but I don't know the context in which he spoke to it, and I'd like to reserve a little time to go look at that before I just pontificate here.
My question, because I just want to ask a question about can this be extended to South Korea?
Yeah, again, let me take a look at the testimony, and we'll see if we can get you a better answer coming back. And if that's not satisfactory, and I recognize that it may not be, you can come back at me again. All right? We'll work it out. Jared from Al Monitor.
Hi, John. Thank you. Just wondering if any Israeli officials have communicated to Department of Defense officials requests for additional support in the last few days, given the situation with Gaza, or any modifications to current cooperation. Thanks.
There have been no additional requests or requests for modifications in terms of the kind of support that we provide our Israeli partners. Oren?
Given the updated CDC guidance, I was wondering if there was any consideration being given to military-wide incentives for getting the vaccine?
I think, like the Secretary said, the best incentive is to know that you're doing the right thing for your family, for your friends, and for your teammates. I don't have any updates on incentives in particular. There are, of course, local base commanders have within their purview, and you've seen some of them adopting modest ways of recognizing those who have received the vaccine, but they do that at their level. I'm not aware of any specific DoD enterprise-wide incentives that are in the works. But again, I'd go back to what the Secretary said, and I thought said it best. The best incentive, of course, is to know that you're doing the right thing by your family and friends and your teammates. Of course, we also want everybody to get informed and educated about the vaccines to make the best decisions in concert with their medical professionals. Laura, I already got you. Yeah.
I have a question on the U.S.-South Korea relations. I believe that the...
Doesn't mean I won't go to it again. I just spread it around a little bit.
She put her left hand up for the first question, right hand up for this one.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
So U.S. and South Korean officials are having a biannual meeting. I think it started today, and it's in yesterday, and it's continuing to today. So do you have any update on the topics and the outcomes?
I don't. I'm not aware of any meetings like that here at the Pentagon. but if I'm wrong about that, we'll correct it for you. I don't have anything on that. You might want to check with my colleague at the State Department. Jim.
John, you've been more than forthcoming on the Defender Europe, talking about how many troops there are and where they're going to be and what they're doing. I'm just curious, the Russians had that huge exercise or alleged exercise in eastern Ukraine, and they say they've pulled back. Have they ever removed all the troops from that area? What is compare and contrast what you're doing with what they're doing?
We've seen some of their forces depart those areas along eastern Ukraine and in occupied Crimea, but not all. I'll let them speak to what they've got there and what it's intended for. We've seen some, but not all, and we continue to call on them to stop the aggression in and of Ukraine, and to be more transparent about what they're doing. And it's never been perfectly clear, to be honest with you, Jim. Yes, we've seen the comments that it was an exercise, but again, there's still quite a sizable array of Russian forces in those areas.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Just to follow up on the previous question, were there any other Americans or DoD personnel evacuated from Israel? And are there any plans to evacuate people in future?
I only know of this 120, and again, these were all people. They were people from like Central Command headquarters staff, European Command headquarters staff that were involved in the planning exercise. I'm only aware of this 120. I know of no other plans or efforts underway to further remove other Americans from Israel right now.
Okay, and can you confirm the reports of rockets being fired from Lebanon toward Israel?
I've seen those press reports just before I walked out here. I can't confirm that.
Okay, thank you.
In the back.
Thanks, John. I was wondering if you could give any extra clarity on the numbers CENTCOM gave on the Afghanistan withdrawal being between 6 and 12%. I know there's some built-in deliberate vagueness there, but can you speak to kind of what the proportion of troops versus equipment being withdrawn or given away is?
Well, I think you saw in the update, they updated the actual pieces of equipment. They did provide that. I'm not going to go into more detail than what CENTCOM has provided. We've had this discussion. I mean, those updates are carefully curated and approved by CENTCOM. And as we've also said, we do have to be mindful of the specificity with which we describe the retrograde, because again, we have to assume that it will be a contested retrograde, and we don't want to put any information out there that's going to put people that are in Afghanistan at any greater risk than they already are. So I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to go into more detail than that. But I do appreciate the question, and I understand where it's coming from. I do. Qasim from Andalou.
Yes, John, thank you. My question was covered, but I want to follow up on that. The 120 personnel. You said their departure was accelerated. When were they planned to come out, and how many days just they moved out ahead of their program? This is one question. The second question, how many U.S. troops currently are there in Israel?
So, as I said, the planning conference was meant to wrap up by the end of this week. So we moved them out a few days early. I don't know how long they had been there. It wasn't, as I understand it, it wasn't very long. Let me just make sure I don't have that in here. I don't think I've got that level of detail. They landed in they landed in Germany today, out of Israel. Yes, and I don't have a number of total U.S. personnel in Israel. I think we don't have U.S. bases there, so whatever number there is, it's going to be small, mostly aligned with our embassy staff and that kind of thing. But this was 120. Again, they were exercise planners. And out of an abundance of caution and good prudence, we working with our Israeli partners ended that planning conference a little early and got them safely to Germany. Ellen from Synopsys.
Hi, thank you so much for taking my question. You've probably already answered this in full, but with the new mask wearing guidance, will DoD be doing anything to change its force health protection measures, and how quickly do you think they'll do it?
Yeah, we talked about this earlier, but I'm happy to repeat. Washington Headquarters Services will now look at the revised CDC guidelines and determine what the best way forward is for the Pentagon reservation and other headquarters and bases here in the Washington capital region. And I'm certainly not going to get ahead of their deliberative process on that. So obviously, if there's a change, since we know you are also here on the Pentagon reservation, we'll keep you all informed if there's any change to the guidelines here inside the building or on bases locally.
But is the Pentagon going to encourage the rest of the service, to change the force health protection guidance that will go to all of the services?
I don't have anything to report out today. Again, these guidelines are literally just an hour or so old, so we're going to have to study it and review it and take a look at what the potential impact of any changes might be on our own readiness across the force. So I just don't have anything to announce or speak to right now. Go ahead.
The U.S. and Japan have an exercise, you said that the 11th to 17th. Do you know the size of the troops? What is it, large size? Or
What exercise?
With the French.
That one. Yeah. Actually, hold on. I might. So I don't have the numbers, but in addition to the forces I talked about before, it'll include units from the 3rd Marine Logistics Group and Combined Task Force 76. I don't have more specifics on that in terms of numbers of people, but Janie, we'll try to get back to you.
Why the United States didn't invite South Korea? Because the U.S. and South Korea, Japan is trilateral in an alliance. But
we exercise routinely and train routinely with the Republic of Korea, as you know, and we are encouraging increased trilateral cooperation between the United States, Japan, and South Korea. I can't speak to this particular exercise and how it was organized. You'd have to talk to Indo-Pacific Command for the way this one was organized. But if in the implication and the question is that we aren't interested in training with the Republic of Korea, I think you well know that that's not the case, that we train routinely with them because we have a treaty commitment that we're obliged and honored to fulfill. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I have a technical follow-up there. Thanks. A couple minutes ago, a question from back there, you responded that we have to assume it's going to be a contested retrograde. We have to assume, you said, it's going to be a contested.
I did say that, yes.
An assumption is a hypothetical. And in Laura's question, you said you don't respond to hypothetical. Yeah, I know you're smirking, but words are important, as you've often said. So I'm really... I'm puzzled that you could comment saying we have to assume something is going to happen in the retrograde. It's going to contest it, but you can't assume for hypothetical planning purposes that Kabul may be contested.
Now you are what's that?
Am I parsing?
No, you're mangling.
Mangling.
Whenever the military plans for anything, there are a series of assumptions that the planners have to make. I'm not a professional planner, but I've read enough to know that you always bake in assumptions in planning. And one of the assumptions as we planned this retrograde was that it's entirely possible that the Taliban could attack our forces being removed. And that is an assumption that you make when you plan. That is not a hypothetical. It's an assumption you have to bake into the plan to make sure that you have all the resources available to deal with that. What Laura was asking me to do no offense, Laura, it was a good question. I'm not picking on you, but was to speculate about, well, what if operations, Taliban operations in and around Kabul affects the retrograde, or how would it? And I'm not going to speak to things that haven't happened yet. That's a different scenario altogether than the planning assumptions that we make when we bake into strategic planning.
But to be clear, there hasn't been any contested efforts by the Taliban. The Taliban has not contested the retrograde yet.
We have seen small harassing attacks that have not had an impact on the retrograde, and I've said that publicly.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for clarifying that.
With the arrest of the Marine today, do you have updated numbers or any numbers about how many active duty or reserve individuals have been arrested in?
For January 6th?
Yeah,
This individual is the first active duty member. Gosh, I know we have numbers on the other ones, but let me get them to you. But he's the first active duty, and I don't want to speculate on the others. We do have numbers of what I believe are reservists and or guard members, but I'll get those. We'll get those for you. I don't want to guess. Okay, I think I'm.
Can you remind us the name of the exercise in Japan?
I thought I did a good job. I'm going to try it again, and I'm sure I'm going to get corrected. But the way I was told to pronounce it was Jeanne d'Arc.
Yes.
Was that right?
Perfect.
All right. I got a D in Spanish in high school, but apparently I can do French. All right. Thanks, everybody.